Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Your time is very precious, and I can appreciate that. So hopefully we'll have some other folks joining us in a few minutes. But I'd like to welcome you to our December meeting. My name is Gretchen Lopez. I'm the chair of the Seniors Council of Douglas County. And so glad you could join us today. We have a pretty full program. We're going to have a few brief announcements and then move into our main presentation, which is our year in review. So we'll share with you what we've accomplished this past year and what we have planned for next year. And then we're going to have a short community conversation after that. And then we get to the refreshments. So that's kind of the way it's going to flow this morning. And what I'd like to do is bring up the next slide. I'm going to go over the mission of the Seniors Council in case you're not familiar with us. We are a county council on aging. And our mission is to basically enhance the quality of life for all of our residents, but especially for those 60 and older living here in Douglas County. That's kind of our target audience, if you will. However, all of our meetings, our monthly meetings, are free and open to the public. And, you know, we don't check birth certificates when you come in, or, you know, if you live in Arapahoe or Jefferson, come on down, come on over. Many of our education presentations are applicable to people regardless of where they live. So we are kind of open to everybody. And we're ready for the next one. You might say, well, you know, how were you formed? Well, way back, way before some of you were born in 1965, under President Johnson, we had the Administration on Aging formed. And so we are kind of an evolvement or an entity that evolved from that basic legislation way back then. And you can see in 73, the Older Americans Act then kind of enhanced what was introduced in 65. Don't move yet. And so I wanted to share a little bit about us specifically. We were actually formed in 75. And then after that, we originally didn't have the name of Seniors Council of Douglas County. It was Douglas County Council on Aging, DCCOA. But later on, around 1991, we had a change of name to Seniors Council of Douglas County. I wasn't here in Colorado, so I can't give you the reasoning why. But we firmly believe that seniors come first. And so, therefore, our name reflects that. Now we're ready. So I'd like to introduce our small but mighty team. This is our executive committee. There I am, up there, full glory. My right-hand man, Mike Drake, right there. You might have met him on the way in. I really rely on Mike a lot. He's a numbers guy. You know, I tolerate numbers. They're not my favorite. He's an expert in that area, so we make a pretty good team, and I appreciate him. We'll skip over the hand there. I'll come back to that. Then we have Tiffany Curtin, who's sitting out front here. She's our education chair. She arranges for all of our speakers and the locations where we are. We generally travel throughout the county because we've discovered that people kind of like to stay in their neighborhood. I don't mind driving if I think, you know, the event's worthwhile. But we found out that some folks in Highlands Ranch won't go to Larkspur. Larkspur won't go to Parker. Some Parker people come here, and some Castle Rock people go to Roxborough, although that's quite a trip. So we move around, and then we have Jean Spar, who is our newest addition. She's our publications chair. Her responsibility is to make sure that the newspapers that we work with, the 3 publications that we work with, the Colorado Community newspapers, Primetime News, and Marketplace, 50 Plus Marketplace, we submit articles of interest to the older adult audience. And so she keeps on task with that. She talks to the potential speakers to see if they're willing to write an article. She was gracious enough to write the article for January, which is going to be on co-housing. Our speaker is going to be, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so Jean did some research and she wrote the article. Thank you, Jean. Appreciate it. And then the little lady at the cartoon at the corner there, She's representing Val Robson. Val Robson's our historian. She's not here today. She's not feeling well, didn't want to spread her germs. I said, thank you very much. You stay nice and cozy in bed. So back to the silhouette of the hand. We have a vacant position on our executive committee, and that is secretary. The secretary would be responsible to attend all our monthly meetings and, of course, take notes and produce minutes. We post those minutes on our webpage. And also to attend our executive committee meetings, which is once a month. So a very important position, currently vacant. If you like to do that kind of thing, I know not many folks do, but some folks are really into it. You know, please talk to one of our other executive committee members. We would be happy to explain to you a little bit more what that entails, but we do have that vacancy. Or if you know of somebody that kind of likes to do that stuff, you know, let us know. Okay, we're ready. So we do our work under three general categories: advocacy, education, and collaboration. So this past year, what we continued to work with the county and health service providers to provide some much needed services to our older residents. You know, we have one of the fastest growing older populations in the country, not just in Colorado, but throughout the country. We kind of are neck and neck with Jeffco, I think, Jefferson County. But people who are born here and raised here like to stay here, and then people like myself move from other places to join family members. So we have more than 65,000 residents 60 years and older, and growing. This is a trend that's going to be continuing in the future. So we like to help a lot of those folks who need services get connected. We, as the Council on Aging, don't provide services, but we do connect people with resources. Sometimes, especially if a person moves here from another part of the country, they might be having some needs and not sure, you know, who to reach out to. So we kind of help connect them. Okay, we're ready. There was a third position that opened up on the Advisory Committee on Aging for Dr. Cog. Well, let me tell you a little personal funny story here. So I moved here about 9 years ago, and everybody was talking about Dr. Cog, and I'm thinking, well, what's his specialty? Is he a cardiologist? Is he a neurologist? You know, what's going on here? And what I found out was those letters stood for the Denver Regional Council on Governments. And then there's Dr. Mack. Don't get me started on that one. That was another one. Well, what is her specialty, you know? So learning these different groups, there is an advisory committee to that group. And because of the large older adult population, a third position opened up and we were able to fill that. So we're pretty happy about that. That just occurred, so we will be working with Dr. Cog on formulating plans to help our older adults. We conducted a community outreach survey because during the pandemic, what we noticed, because a lot of our target audience were basically homebound for a variety of reasons, we, with the assistance of the county, really appreciate the fact that they gave us a virtual platform and we had virtual meetings, but not all older adults are comfortable with that format. And we lost a lot of attendees to meetings and whatnot. So we wanted to survey our community to find out what's the best way to reach out. And what we found out was that some people like the virtual meetings, some people are the in-person meetings, and then some people like a choice. So in case they are coming down with a cold and don't want to go out, but they don't want to miss the meeting, they can kind of WebEx in, similar to Zoom, or, you know, if they do want to come in person, they can. So as a result of that, what we have planned for next year is once a quarter, we'll have a meeting either in this hearing room or another place throughout the county that has the capability to have virtual at the same time of in-person. That's what's happening today. We're meeting in person, but this is also streaming live, so people can kind of WebEx in. And then for those people who prefer the in-person meetings, The rest of the quarter will be moving throughout the county. Sometimes we'll be in Parker, sometimes we'll be in Lone Tree. And I'm going to have Tiffany speak a bit about our meeting schedule a little bit later. We have a slide on that. And that was very revealing too, because what we found out was, and we had about 362 respondees to our survey, many of them online, that they do use email. They do, let's see, some of them did podcasts, not too many. They did like YouTube, and we do have a YouTube channel. So we're looking into using that even more effectively. And so that was very, very, very revealing. Also, we asked about topics that they would be interested in hearing about. And a large percentage of the respondees said they want legislative updates. They want to know what's going on in the legislature relative to older adults. So we are going to be addressing that as well on a quarterly basis. So that's made available. So that survey was very, very helpful, and we're working with people like Rand from the county, and Jen Ebby and Wendy, who's their public relations person, to develop a more robust presence in social media. And we do have a web page on the county website, and use those more effectively. We're finding that 60 and older adults, many of them enjoy technology, and the ones that are hesitant about it, we always direct myself, well, if you have a teenage grandson or daughter, they'll teach you for sure. So we also promote the mission of our council throughout the county by meeting with folks and just educating them as to who we are, what we do, the fact that we're the voice of older adults to decision makers. I'm ready. So one of the things we were able to accomplish this year is that the town of Castle Rock is updating its playgrounds. And the first one they picked was Butterfield Crossing Playground, which happens to be like right around the corner from where I live. When my granddaughters were younger, I used to take them there. And they're calling it a possibilities playground because they're making it all inclusive. They're really focusing on those children who have some sort of disability that maybe prevents them from having a playground experience. And so they have a double zip line planned for this park. It's going to open next spring, where a person or a child with a disability can actually sit next to a family member or a friend or a buddy and zip line together. They have a sensory wall for children who have sensory issues. They have outdoor musical instruments. They have a swing that will accommodate a wheelchair. And they also have some adult fitness equipment for people who might be in a wheelchair that can do, work the upper body or whatever. So Mike and I approached them, reached out, and we said, so that's all great and we love it, but what about us? What about people who are older 60? And they really hadn't thought about that too much. So we introduced them to the idea of incorporating some outdoor fitness equipment that is specifically designed for older adults. And the beauty of this equipment is, even though it's designed for older adults, people of all ages can use it. So after our discussions, and the town of Castle Rock was very open to this, they have included Tai Chi wheels. And so this stands on a post and it works your upper body, your shoulder, keep it nice and mobile and fluid. They've included a strider, which mimics a cross-country motion, so it works on hips. And then they have some balance wheels up here, balance steps up here, so that we can work on our balance. The major cause of injury in the home for many older adults is loss of balance and a fall. So we want to work on those core muscles, and those balance steps do that. So we're very happy to have worked with them. And this is the first park that they are renovating. As I said, should be open next spring. And so now we're on the radar for the other parks that they're updating for that kind of equipment. Okay, now I'm ready. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany, And as you can see, we have had a wide variety of presentations this year.
Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed our presentations this past year, and I hope some of you were able to attend some of those. If you weren't able to attend our previous year's sessions, I hope that you will join us for our 2023 series coming up. In 22, we started the annual review in January. So this meeting was moved to January. COVID disrupted a lot of things. We're back on schedule with having our annual reviews in December. In February, we had a presentation about the senior patrol, Medicare patrol, and the state of healthcare, and how to access assistance if you have questions or concerns about Medicare fraud, or those sorts of topics. A really fun one, which was kind of a new and unique approach to some of these sessions, was in March, we had a presentation about space travel and the effects of space travel on aging and the science behind it, which is really absolutely fascinating. And fortunately, these that I'm mentioning right now, those were all recorded. So you can still access those on our YouTube channel. So if you're like, oh, I just learned about the Seniors Council just before coming to this meeting today, you can go back and access these on our YouTube channel. Grandparents as co-pilots, this is a really great, a really informative and engaging session in talking about how, as older adults, we can engage with our younger generations who are struggling with things that really were not issues in our lives as when we were younger. So giving some tools for how to communicate with younger generations so both parties, yourself as well as the younger generations, feel respected and are able to benefit from those conversations. The practical wisdom from an end-of-life doula. We're all facing mortality, whether we like it or not. And even if we don't have our own mortality on our minds, many of us are facing the mortality of our loved ones as well, in giving tools to prepare for those transitions that come up in life, and that one also. So like I said, all of these were recorded and very really thought-provoking, and gives you opportunities to really think through and ask questions in a safe and fun environment. So I try and bring in speakers who are engaging and kind of bring up new ideas and new thoughts. So that brings me to, Gretchen already talked about the possibilities playground. So yeah, so it brings me to our, let's see here. Forgot, I almost skipped this slide, sorry. Yeah, so we started resuming our in-person sessions in the middle of this year as well. And we're so happy to see faces again and interact with smiles and not having to have people muted, so we can kind of have more of a real-time reaction to what's happening, and our speakers also appreciate that. We are really hoping to continue to build back audiences in our 2023 series, as it's been kind of an adjustment period, getting used to what's in person now versus what's exclusively online. We did kick off with a presentation of the local archives and history department at Douglas County Libraries. If you're not familiar with our archives and local history, we've been very active in cataloging and holding and displaying that information and making it accessible to our community, and also growing it and inviting our community to be a part of those archives and local history. And just a little mini promotion, when that new library is officially open and built, the archives will have an even bigger and better section. We learned from the Colorado Talking Book Library and learned about the Audio Information Network for people who have vision disabilities. So these two organizations make reading material more accessible to people with vision disabilities, no cost to the persons who are asking for those services, and slightly different services for those. We love volunteers and volunteering, and as you heard Gretchen mention, we're also looking for a volunteer to help be our secretary on our executive committee. Just a reminder promo. But volunteering is a really great opportunity for older adults to stay connected with their community, to stay, feel like they are continuing to remain relevant. And it's important for all of us to be actively involved and engaged. I was recently talking to a couple of former colleagues who had retired in recent years, and their complaint was that they were getting bored. So it alleviates that boredom, keeps our minds active, and that keeps us physically healthier as well. We had a community conversation with the new superintendent, Erin Kane of the Douglas County School District. And that was a really good opportunity with some lively discussion to have her have feedback and learn more about the interests and concerns of older adults, as well as for her to give information about how our schools are funded and supported, and what some of those challenges might be within the school district as well. Possibilities Playground was last month. And here we are at our year-end review. So if you have questions about any of those live presentations, I'll be sticking around after this meeting for a little while. Feel free to grab me. I'm happy to give you more information about engaging with some of those presentations that we had in person that weren't recorded as well. Next slide. Okay. And do you want me to talk about next one coming up, or do you want to go to this one? Back to Gretchen.
We're a tag team. So as far as collaborating is concerned, our community partners are very crucial to the work that we do. And we're trying to grow that segment of people that we interact with. And so we reached out to some new community partners. One of the newer ones is the school district. What we'd like to do is work with the superintendent and the principals here in Douglas County and develop more opportunities for multi-generational experiences. One of the initiatives that we really feel strongly about is an anti-ageism initiative that's not only here in Colorado, but nationally and globally. Ageism happens all over, started really in the workplace, where older workers were given incentives to retire. I've talked to a couple of folks who, in their 50s, their corporations were already saying, hey, there's a bit of a bonus here. It was kind of like this is the way out for you. But it also happens the other way. When I talk to some of my peers, I ask them, what do you think, you're an ageist? Do you say, derogatory things about a person based on their age? I go, oh, no. And I said, well, have you ever said that millennials are selfish? Ooh, well, that's ageism. Or darn those teenagers. They're all, disrespectful. Let's think about that. So ageism can work either way, towards an older person or towards a younger person. Sometimes younger people are told in the workplace, you don't have the experience to lead a team. Well, maybe they have the capabilities and the skills to do that. Why should that be based on age? So ageism is purely based on age. Now, it might be that some millennials are selfish. Now, that's not all of them. And some teenagers do get into trouble, but that's not all of them. And when you talk to a younger person about older people, they think all of us are, playing bingo and sitting in a rocking chair. Very few of us. So it's that multi-generational experience, I think, that will change some of those negative perceptions. So we've already talked about reaching out to the community, and one of the ways we do that is we participate in other organizations' community events. So we had a table at the Highlands Ranch Older Adult Health and Information Fair, as well as the Senior Law and Safety Summit. We were at the Parker Center's Community Resource Fair in Parker, at the Castle Rock Senior Life Expo, which drew thousands of people. That's an annual event that our Castle Rock Senior Center puts on. And we also participated in the DRCOG County Council of Aging Summit. For the first time, DRCOG brought in representatives from their region to talk about councils on aging, the struggles we're experiencing, or the things we want to accomplish. So that was the end of September, and we really enjoyed that summit. And we also promoted all these different efforts within Douglas County. We feel as if, as a good community partner and collaborator with other organizations, that we should make people aware of some of these other things that are going on within our county. So our outreach accomplishments, we have an electronic newsletter we call First Friday Update. So our meetings are the first Thursday of the month, and this goes out the very next day. So our December First Friday is going out tomorrow. If you sign up on the sign-up sheet, we'd be happy to send that directly to your email address. It kind of gives you a teaser for the presentation for the month following, as well as some other really good information. For instance, we have a reminder for those who are on Medicare that the open enrollment period is ending December 7th. If they haven't made a decision yet, there are some resources to help them do that. Things of that nature. We also promote some of the DA, District Attorney's Office fraud scam alerts, make people aware of that. And then just for instance, a couple of weeks ago, the Sheriff's Department put out a warning for older adults in Highlands Ranch and Castle Rock that there were criminals targeting us when we do grocery shopping, and letting ladies know that, don't leave your purse in the cart. If you're going to pick out produce, you're squeezing those melons to pick one out, don't forget about and I see this often, as a matter of fact, not just older adults, but some younger women. I caught a couple on Walmart, and I just took them aside and said, I'm with the Seniors Council. The sheriff just told us that there are criminals in the area, lifting wallets from open purses. And I noticed, yours is unattended. So we do that as a community service. And as I mentioned, Jean submits those articles to those newspapers, either on a monthly or quarterly basis. And I don't know if you're familiar with Oakwood Senior Apartments over here in Castle Rock, but they just did a big remodel, and they had a reopening. And what we did is we put together some welcoming packets for all their residents that put in not only information about us as a resource, but many other local resources, and that was well appreciated. So now we can give you a little bit of news about our Vintage and Vibrant event we started planning this year. Vintage and Vibrant is a day-long educational event for older adults. And what we do is we find a venue here in Douglas County. We start in the morning with a continental breakfast and a morning keynote speaker. And we already have Jean Knott. You see a picture of her right there on the lower left. She's going to be our morning keynote. She's in her 70s. She was the 2021 Miss Colorado Senior America. She's been an actress. She sings in a musical group, and she's been doing stand-up comedy for older adults for the past several years. So she's going to be our morning keynote and do a little bit of stand-up comedy. I'm really looking forward to her. She's a very vivacious lady. And we have Dr. Carson Bruns lined up for our luncheon keynote. He is an assistant professor with the University of Denver at Boulder, and he is doing research on what's called smart tattoos. How many people have heard about that? Yeah, exactly. Well, I know, Mike, you have. We've talked about it. His hand goes, whoop. So what this is all about is, and we're seeing folks like Dr. Bruns researching the ability of tattoos to help protect our health. And in his particular case, he's very focused on preventing skin cancer. Now, living in Colorado and being, 1 mile closer to the sun, that increases our risk. And as we age, we're at greater risk for skin cancer. So he's developing a tattoo, and he, when I talked to him, he's tried it on himself, although he's much younger than I am. And so he has this invisible tattoo on his forearm. But when the UV rays hit a danger level, the tattoo comes up and becomes visible. So that's a visual sign that, get the heck out of the sun or reapply your sunscreen. And there are other companies and researchers developing tattoos to monitor blood sugar for diabetics, to monitor blood pressure for those who suffer from high blood pressure. So a lot of exciting things going on under that category of smart tattoos, and Dr. Bruns is going to share his research with us when we have our date and venue. So we are currently on a search for a venue and a date. We are shooting for September of 2023. And so in addition to our keynote speakers, there will be other educational sessions to choose from. There will be, of course, a luncheon when Dr. Bruns is talking, and then some door prizes and collateral from our exhibitors. We will have a limited number of tables for agencies and healthcare providers to purchase and be at the event. So we'll keep you posted on that. We're pretty excited. We've had 2 of these before in 2018 and 2019 that were very successful and very popular. So it's back in the works for next year. All right, other things that we're going to do is, because of the survey I talked to you about, we're going to be offering a mix of both virtual and in-person monthly meetings. We're going to continue with our newsletter, continue hosting that Vintage and Vibrant event, and we are hoping to initiate a working relationship with the new senior center scheduled for Highlands Ranch, which is supposed to open next year. We're watching that very carefully. There are only 2 senior centers in Douglas County at this point, one in Parker and one here in Castle Rock. So this 3rd edition is going to be really great for the folks who live over in that area. We're going to be developing strategies with the county to increase the senior council's membership and a more robust presence on social media and through other means as well. We've got the articles going, and we're reaching out to other community leaders. We do have an informational brochure which needs updating, so that's on the agenda for next year. And as I mentioned, working with the schools to provide more multi-generational experiences so we can learn to respect each other regardless of our ages and look more at our capabilities and character. So that's kind of what we got going there. Let's see what, I think we go ahead. Yeah, so here's our first quarter calendar. Tiffany, you want to talk about this?
Okay. Again, I'm pretty excited about our 2023 series as we have our first quarter planned out. Our January 5th presentation will be on the topic of co-housing, and with an emphasis on how that can benefit older adults. And when we're talking about anti-ageism, what we learn about working together is that more exposure and working together helps really bridge those, change that narrative for all generations, to see the relevance of older adults beyond those stereotypes of what older adults can and can't do. So co-housing, and looking at it as an intergenerational concept and how it can benefit older adults, to look at how that can work. We've called on Trish Becker to kind of talk more about what those co-housing situations look like. If you're interested in, being a part of a co-housing, what that might look like for you, or seeing about how that might you might be able to do a modification of a co-housing situation for you. She herself also lives in a multi-generational home, and she promises to be a very engaging speaker. I was only more excited when I talked to her about her passion for this topic. So I'm really looking forward to her presentation, and I hope you are able to join us as well. In February, also excited about this one. We've invited Bruce from the Osher Ollie Lifelong Learning Institute to do a little mini teaser of what an Ollie class is like, and to talk about the purpose and the mission of the Ollie, or the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, which originates out of DU, and it is to promote those lifelong learning experiences. And the timing is great, as Douglas County Libraries has also formed a partnership with Ollie, and throughout 2023, we'll be offering a host of sessions that will be in series of three sessions. So there's a continuation of learning that goes with it. There's not homework involved, but it's just a continuation of expanding those learning experiences. So, and those will be offered at the various locations, the various Douglas County libraries. So attend the teaser and sign up for one of the other sessions that's coming up. Some of those topics include, in January, you'll be able to sign up for sessions for travel, getting to know your world, whether it's travel like virtually through the comfort of your own home, if actual physical travel is not possible for you, or actually how to go about really engaging with your travel experiences. And they are targeted for older adults. So it's not the expectation of you're 21, just out of college, you've got all this graduation money coming at you, and that's how it's going to work for you. But they are definitely intended for older adult audiences on those Ollie classes. Other sessions that we'll be experiencing in that series at the libraries that you can sign up for free include things like a tour of our national parks. Okay, armchair tour. We're not actually taking you to all the parks in a 3-week series, but getting to know what all those parks are about. And I can't remember the third set of those series, but definitely I'm excited that it'll be a little teaser class for what those Ollie classes are like. And on March 3rd, I've invited Artie Leal, who is with the Douglas County Housing Partnership, to share information about some of the new housing opportunities for older adults, new to and coming up in Douglas County, as well as some of those opportunities for ensuring that older adults are able to stay in their own home as much as possible when that's available to them. Opportunities for how to fund that, things like what are these reverse mortgages about, and is that a good thing for me? So different topics on that is why we've invited Artie Leal to speak to us, to our group on March 3rd. And that March 3rd meeting will be back here in this building so that we're able to broadcast it as one of those topics that is related to not totally legislative, but maybe a little bit on that, but so it will be able to be recorded on that one. And back to Gretchen, I think. Mm-hmm. I believe it's open now. Yeah. So for those classes, you can go to the Douglas County Library's webpage or chat with me and I'll help you navigate that. Thank you, Jean. Jean asked when those signups are open at the library. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So you can see we have a lot planned for next year. And at this point, I'd like to invite any questions you might have on this part of the presentation. Anything that I mentioned or Tiffany mentioned. You have a question on your mind? We like questions. Means you're thinking and using your brain cells. No questions. Okay. All right. Well, now I'd like to move into a community conversation with you and then ask your assistance with this particular situation. The Seniors Council finds itself in a very unprecedented situation in that during the pandemic, as I referred to earlier, we've lost a lot of our attendees, and because they weren't comfortable with technology, or they were ill because they were struggling with that. But what we discovered is that we are needing people to be ready to step up into leadership positions, and we don't have a pool to pull from. Mike and I, as chair and vice chair, our current operating procedures mention that we have two-year terms. Well, we're coming to the end of our second two-year term, the end of this month. And there aren't any potential candidates to step up in the leadership positions. So we don't want the council to fall apart and not be effective. So what we came up with was the possibility of amending our operating procedures to allow the chair and the vice chair to continue for a third two-year term. And Mike and I are both willing to do that, but that would take a change in our operating procedures. And so we would have to have a vote from people about that. And our plan would be, if that's passed, then the council can work on building membership over the next 2 years. And then at the end of our third term, there would be some potential candidates to move into leadership positions. So what we're going to do is open the voting up to everyone 60 and older living in Douglas County. If you're a resident and you're 60 years or older or serving on the Seniors Council, you can cast a vote either for or against amending the operating procedures to allow the chair and the vice chair to serve up to 3 two-year terms. And we're going to ask for you to vote if you're 60 or older. So I can't look at these two young ladies over here. I might be wrong, but so we're going to be passing out ballots, and but I would like a discussion first before you cast your ballot one way or the other, if there are any questions about that, and anybody can ask a question. Yes, Tiff?
Just to make it open and clear to all who are potentially voting, including those who might be voting from watching this online, they would have that opportunity to vote. What would happen if this, if we don't pass this amendment to our operating procedure?
Good question. So as I mentioned, Mike and I would have to step down as of January 1st. We would not have a chair. We would not have a vice chair. We would have a publications chair. We would have a historian. And I think that would negatively impact our effectiveness on meeting our goals for next year, certainly. And although, the other councils on aging are also struggling with attendance and potential leaders, I think it's important that we stay as viable as possible to move forward. There's a lot of work to be done. And as I mentioned, there are so many older adults in our county that if we weren't able to move forward with strong leadership, that our older adults are going to suffer. And we certainly don't want that to happen. And more older adults are moving into this area as well. So I think it's really important for us to plan ahead. And, the pandemic rocked all of our worlds in many ways and continues to rock our world. So, this is kind of an unusual situation. And normally we wouldn't be faced with this, but this is our world today. So thanks for that question. I think our work would be significantly impaired. And as Tiffany mentioned, I'm glad she brought it up, the ballot will be on our webpage, and people who cannot make the meeting today can vote up through December 15th. We're working with the county to have that ballot available until that time, so people can cast their vote. one way or another. Well, I guess we're ready for ballots. Yeah, if you could pass them out, and then if you need a pen, we have some pens. And then Tiffany has a box. She's going to be collecting your completed ballot as you leave the room. And before we go, oh, there's the ballot box right there. It's a pretty one. And then we'll move on to the reception here in a few minutes. And I hope all of you picked up a first quarter meeting schedule, so you know in advance when the dates are and where we're going to be. If you are a healthcare provider like these lovely ladies are over here, we would encourage you to share that information with your clients in case they want to come and join us. We would welcome them as well. Well, without any further ado, I think we'll adjourn the meeting and move on to the refreshments, and be sure that Tiffany gets your ballot as you leave the room, and I'll meet you by the coffee.